Israel is reportedly in talks to sell its Merkava tanks to two countries, one of them in Europe, in what would be the first export of the flagship fighting vehicle. The Ynet website is quoting a Defense Ministry official saying that record demand for Israeli products is due to in part to countries wanting to replenish their arsenals after providing Ukraine with weapons for its war with Russia. So for more on the story, our international affairs correspondent Batya Levinthal is here in studio. And what a mysterious report. What more is known? What is confirmed?
Not just mysterious, but enticing, and not a whole lot is confirmed. We do know from the Defense Ministry spokesperson that happened to be mentioned in this report that these tanks are likely to be going to two countries, one that was supposedly said to be on the European continent and one that was not necessarily in Europe. Now, what is quite interesting about this report, besides the guess who, which in terms of which country they are going to, we're talking about Merkava tanks. A little bit of history. These tanks were first introduced after the war in 1973, when Israel lost a lot of its arsenal already in the Yom Kippur War against Egypt as well as Syria. These tanks came also as a way to not necessarily rely on foreign armory and foreign weapons to come into the country. We're talking about incredibly old tanks that are now in their fourth generation. So the interest is, why send these tanks that are known as their flagship tanks to any country in the world, let alone a country in Europe that is not necessarily on par with what you could consider a top tank, being the Leopard 2 tanks that Germany has sent through to Ukraine. Israel also has a long-standing policy of not sending offensive armory to Ukraine. So there's a lot of talks in the works here of, could they be bypassing those channels by sending these old tanks, which doesn't really get much benefit to any European country, in particular those under NATO's protection, but would get benefit in Ukraine in a war that an old tank would be fighting an old tank, being that these Merkava tanks are fighting with Russia's current war tanks as well, which are also tend to be generational. And if that's the case, Israel would be treading on very thin ice, because Russia would have its eyes and ears open, and that might likely cost Israel a situation on its northern border with Syria, where it's supposed to keep channels open with Moscow. So this is, besides being an interesting and mysterious report, it's a very enticing report to get to the bottom of these details, because without those direct details, there's bound to be a bit of a diplomatic clash somewhere along the line.